Welcome to SF Commercial Property Conversations with Bruce Bean, where Bay Area investments meet expert insights. Get ready to unlock the strategies of commercial real estate success.
So today we have Shantelle Cabir with us, and Shantelle is in the insurance business, the blue collar provision, providing blue collar workers with insurance or blue collar companies with insurance. So I'm very interested to kind of know about this whole sector. So Shantelle, it's great to have you. I'd love to hear kind of your history of how you actually got into this business.
Thank you, Bruce. I appreciate you having me. So I actually fell into this industry when I was 16 years old. I was still in high school and was looking for a part-time job. And at the time, I had started off as a telemarketer for a smaller boutique firm and, worked my way up in the ranks. And, naturally, the folks that were willing to take my call were blue-collar businesses that were looking to have opportunities to save money. So I naturally ended up building a lot of my business around that. So between construction, janitorial, agriculture, manufacturing, and distributors, that's a big space that I've always focused in. But by the time that I was around 24 years old, I had kind of jumped into, being in this producer realm and, bringing in a lot of business to the organization, and actually decided to make shift and work for a larger firm that would be able to provide a lot more resources for my clients and really be able to be leveraged in a way where I could provide risk control and claim support, and also be able to support my clients in a way where they could be able to have opportunities to get contracts within different sectors. So it's been a great change moving over to Newfront over the last 5 years of my career, and have just been continuously, working towards creating opportunities and solutions for my clients to be able to optimize their businesses and bring them greater success.
So you came out of the University of California State
Northridge. Yeah, I was
Northridge.
also, I forgot to mention that I was also in school. So
Okay, yeah,
so
good.
yeah, so after high school, I had decided to get my BA in business. So I was in Cal State Northridge, and I was doing, full-time work, full-time school, basically, and just, getting through as much as I could to make sure that I could also have that, to support me on the back end as well.
So you started out cold calling. So I'm just curious, did they train you very well in terms of cold calling?
It was more like sink or swim, I think with cold calling, there's only so much you can train on, right? I think you
Mm.
either have to have it in you or you don't. It's like it can be a very mind-numbing job for people to just sit on the phones and, be rejected by 90% of the calls that they're getting. So it's not easy per se, but I think for me, like, I really like taking on a good challenge. I think that's something that I enjoy, is I always like to be challenged, and I really like talking to people. I mean, it's like it kind of just goes hand in hand for me. So I think I'm like one of those in a very small breed of people that actually enjoyed cold calling. Still to this day, if I need to, I'm happy to, make a cold call to someone. It's not something that I've ever been afraid of or shied away from. But I think nowadays, with having two kids, I have, a toddler that's 2.5 and a 6-month-old. My strategy has more been referral based, and thankfully, I'm in a place in my career and my life that a lot of the business that comes in is either warm leads or referral business from clients that have been really happy with the support and service that I've given them over the tenure of my career. So it's definitely been a big change from that, but I think that for anybody who does want to get into the insurance business, you don't have to be the best cold caller. I think that it really comes down to having the grit to be able to take on, the rejection, the challenges, the things that are going to come through sales in general. But, I think people who can cold call and can, get through that hurdle, I think they have a lot more success in being able to build that connection up front with the customer, and, ultimately to be able to support their businesses in a meaningful way as well.
So how are you building your referral business? Do you have a key for that part of it?
So a lot of it is honestly word of mouth. And then it's also, I've been very involved in WCOME. I'm on the board as a vice president for WCOE of California, which is Women Construction Owners and Executives. And it's really been so great to be a part of because I get a chance to really build on the community that, I get to serve, which is a lot of women-owned businesses in the construction industry. And also, it allows people to really be able to leverage an expert like myself to help them in insurance challenges. So whether they're my client or not, like I'm always happy to help to give, my knowledge and expertise and experience to help people get out of difficult situations. And I think that's the beauty of this network is that we have attorneys that are within our organization. We have, owners of construction companies. We have people who are just, in HR making decisions, that kind of a thing. And I think it's nice to have this network of people that you can go to and that they'll be able to either give you the right advice or connect you to the right person to get the appropriate advice to support you. So I think, in general, I've been very lucky to get in this industry very early on and create a name for myself where people can really rely on me as an expert to go to and answer questions that they need. And ultimately, I think that just translates for people to want to do business with me. I think that's just naturally, when someone really helps you get out of a tough situation or, helps you get through a challenge, you want to go to that person to really continue to work with them in a greater way. So I think that, again, it's a lot of it is just being in the industry as long as I have. I'm very young. I'm only 30 years old. So I think that this industry has much older people. And so I think that people are also concerned about, their broker retiring. And so I think knowing that somebody is, as young as I am and that I can come into the industry and support them is really helpful. And, just allows them to be able to really put a lot of trust in me. So I'm very grateful for that.
Well, that is true. I mean, when I think of the insurance business, it does tend to make me think of older people that, oh yeah, the older brokers, the life insurance people, the, different groups of insurance people tend to be kind of older in my mind. So it is great to talk to somebody that's younger and very interested and keen on the whole insurance world and can kind of take a much more millennial or whatever category you want to put it in approach to selling insurance.
Yeah, no, thank you. Thank you for that. Yeah, I mean, it's so funny. We always talk about millennials and Gen Z and Gen X, and I can't even keep up with how many gens there are anymore.
Yeah, now there's beta and alpha.
But I think that, it's especially for, the generation that I'm in, I think that things have changed so much. And I think that these days, one of the biggest assets that I also have is, working at a company that puts technology and AI at the forefront of things. I think that, as we all know, insurance is a very antiquated industry. And, I feel really fortunate to work for a company that is prioritizing AI and prioritizing technology to really be able to give value added services for clients. So I think that it's really amazing to see that we're kind of getting into that era of moving things forward. It's crazy to think that like 10 years ago, you had to like always go into the bank to deposit a check. Now you can do it all on your phone. And I see kind of insurance moving in that direction too. Things should be easily accessed. People should be able to renew their policies with ease and have a seamless process with these things from a technology standpoint. So I feel really good that I chose to work for Newfront for the past 5 years, especially because I think this has been just a time where we're really moving into this evolution of technology and AI and all the, amazing things that are coming about. I mean, whether we like it or not, it's coming, right? Just like the dot-com boom that, I'm sure you went through. And so it's just something that we have to kind of be aware of and know how to use it in a way that can be strategic and actually help businesses and really be able to put them, in the best position possible.
That's an interesting analogy. I never thought about that, but the dot-com boom in some ways is very similar to the AI boom that's happening right now. My take on it is that people are more fearful of the AI boom than they were of the dot-com boom. What do you think?
I think that people are very afraid right now of what's coming because I think it's the unknown, right? It's like we have no idea how powerful this thing can be or will be, but we know that, now with click of a button, you can pretty much know anything you want about any topic. And the amount of ways that it can, optimize for your business and for your personal life, honestly. Like you could literally have it create a whole itinerary for you for a travel trip that you want to go on. It can go into such detail. It's like, I mean, I think it's if you haven't heard of Chat GPT,
Oh, yeah. I use it all the
I
time.
I suggest you look it up because it's something that is definitely out there, and it's just one of the many different ways that people are utilizing AI for their businesses and for their personal lives and just optimizing things in general. My fear is that, we've already gotten to this place where instant gratification, like we all have
Yeah.
Amazon, we all have like these tools at our fingertips
Right.
that give us this instant gratification. I mean, it's like, do we even have to think anymore? Do we even have to, you know what I mean? Like, I feel like everything is just there for you. You don't even need to think. So I also am just getting to a place where I'm wondering, like, the doctors that we're going to have, the
Oh,
attorneys that we're going to be working with, like these professional level of people that, really are spending all this time to go to school and do all these things. First of all, how many of those are we going to have? And secondly, like, you know, are they really going to be as educated as they say they are, or are they going to be relying on a tool like AI to be telling them, what to be doing for their patients and for their clients and customers? And so it does scare me in that sense, like the long-term view of things and how that's going to be. And I have a 2-year-old and a 7-month-old, so it's like I
right,
think
right.
about their future and like, what are they going to be doing in school? Like, is it just going to like automatically be in their brains or what? It's an amazing thing to really see the evolution of it. But I think, it's just so important also to continue to teach, younger generations about the importance of hard work. And, I think these days now more than ever with the influence of social media and technology and everything, it's hard, right? Like we're dealing with people who have completely different values and grew up in a completely different time. Even from my time, I'm only 30, but I feel like it's definitely a different range and spectrum that I see, of how people are in the working force now. And I think that we really have to be, um, you know, emphasizing how important it is to still work, to still find ways to, be in spaces like the blue collar space. Because if we don't, then how are these homes going to be built? How is the food going to be put on our plates? How is, the machinery and all that? You know what I mean? Like we have to still be mindful of that, because as much as AI can do, there's a physical aspect to things that can't be, taken over by AI. And so we really have to be mindful of that and make sure that people still know about trade schools and people know about how to get into those opportunities, because not everybody's a school person, right? Like not everybody
Right.
has to go in that direction. And so I do hope that, the generations that are going to come in the future are going to be mindful of that. And, I hope that we can all find ways to encourage people to still look that direction, because, I mean, just like insurance being a business that you think about, a person that's elderly being in. I mean, it's the same thing with construction right now. It's the same thing with a lot
Mm,
of different businesses.
mm.
We're seeing a dying workforce, right? So we really have to be focusing on bringing in the next generation of people to take on all of these things so that we have leaders that are competent and, smart and willing and hardworking and gritful, that are going to be able to really push things forward for the next generation to come as well.
So take us through if a new client comes to you, take us through your process. They come to you, they say, Chantel, I need to look at my insurance. What happens?
So the first thing we do is a gap analysis. So we'll look at their current coverage and basically look to see if there's any gaps based on their operations, because oftentimes we see that, people do business with who they know, right? Like that's just naturally, you're going to ask someone, hey, who do you use for your broker? Who do you use for your attorney? Who do you use for these things? And sometimes you end up with someone who's really good, and sometimes you end up with someone who's just kind of like a generalist, and that's okay. But maybe they miss something, right? So there's a lot of, especially we see it a lot in construction on general liability policies, on these terms where we just see that unfortunately they're not covered properly, and they're not aware of it. The most common thing that we see is that somebody is doing residential work or new construction in residential and they don't have the coverage for it. They have a clear
Mm.
exclusion on their policy. We also see, wrap policies that don't have coverage appropriately provided. So there's a lot of different things, and I'm not going to give out all my secrets, but first thing that we
No,
do is
no,
we
right.
definitely we definitely look to see where the gaps are in the coverage, and then whether they have the appropriate coverage, or they're carrying EPLI coverage, or are they carrying professional liability pollution? Do they understand what those coverages are? Has anybody ever walked them through on claim scenarios that can happen in these areas? So the first piece that we do is we look at the data, we analyze like what the problem can be. And if we see that, everything is good on that side, we'll give that feedback, but we'll also want to look at the losses. We want to look at the total cost of their risk. Like, what kind of losses are you guys experiencing? What are the trends that you guys are seeing within the marketplace? And, what can we do as a brokerage to be able to support you in that? Because, not every small business can afford to have a safety manager that's on payroll.
Right.
Hopefully, they get to a place where they can, but not everyone is in that position. So especially for small businesses in California, I think that it's really important to have a broker that is very, very well versed in this area and that can support them through difficult situations. The experience modification is a big factor for a lot of businesses, especially if we look at the construction arena, the blue collar space in general with agriculture, janitorial. This directly affects their cost and what they're paying for their rates. But typically when you're bidding on jobs, especially in construction, that's something that they're looking at. They're judging your company based on where your XMOD sits. And if they see that XMOD is elevated above even 100%, that could be a trigger for them to not do business with the company. And so we really work to look at all those angles and see how we can put our client in the best position possible, and ensuring that they're in a position where, in the event of a claim happening, what do they do? Do they have an investigation process? Do they have, the right tools in place for their team? Does their leadership understand that? Because oftentimes what we see is like the owner really cares, the people at the top that are having the conversations with us really care. But what about like their supervisors? What about their foremen? What about their leads? Like, are they on the same page with leadership? And do they have incentives and programs in place to be able to accomplish those goals? Sometimes that's what's missing, right? It's like this communication piece that's not there. And the reality is that these crews, especially when you're running, large organizations with 500, 1,000, more than that employees, leadership can feel like they're not necessarily fully in communication with the employees. And so it's really important to have the right levels of communication flowing through whoever is leading the employees in each of their crews. So, we're really focused in and invested in working with that for employers and ensuring that they're able to see the best results for their business by really being able to look within their business and having us as a third party consult with them on what we see works within our other, clients that we work with and how they're able to be successful. So, it's a very customized approach. Nothing is like, you can look at two companies that are doing the exact same thing, that run, basically the exact same remedy and everything. And the two models can be totally different. And it's more important to understand where that person's coming from, what their model is, and where they want to be for the future. So, working with them to get there is really key for our success with our clients.
So once they say buy a policy from you, do you have a follow-up system to try and reduce their risk as they go along?
Absolutely. Yeah. So we have a lot of different ways that we're doing that internally. So the good thing about, working with a company like Newfront is the resources, right? So of course you get my expertise, my support, my hand holding across the whole entire process for, as long as we're insuring you. But also on top of that, you have a dedicated person for risk management. You have a dedicated person for claims. You have a dedicated person for account management. You have a dedicated person working with you on all ends. And it could be multiple people in your business that we're working with, right? But we take a very hands-on approach to come in with our team and have that expertise of being able to give you a bench of knowledge. And we will constantly be setting parameters for when we need to be following up. So, we do work with the client to see how often they want those communications to come, but we'll encourage it if we feel like it's necessary. Like, if somebody's like, hey, I can only really commit to doing a claim review or having you guys come out once a year, but we really feel like it's necessary to do more than that, we'll encourage them and work with them to figure out a way and a plan to be able to get there. Because ultimately, I feel like at least at a quarterly basis, you should be knowing what's going on with your claims. You should be knowing, you should be in the know, not just with your broker, but even with your carrier about what's happening, where things stand. And it's so often that I hear that people just don't even know what's going on with their claims when I'm, speaking with prospects in the marketplace. They don't know what's going on with their cost. and they don't have kind of like an insight into what's going on within the market as well, which I know, we want to go into today, especially on the property side. There's, it's across the board. We're seeing there's a lot of areas that all businesses are being impacted by, between
Mm.
property, commercial auto. And so we are definitely, doubling down in those areas and leveraging the relationships we have in the marketplace to really be able to help, in those arenas as well for our clients.
Well, that's interesting. I never thought about this before, but say, the LA fires, is that now spilling over to other insurance like auto or whatever to actually make those rates go up?
Well, so auto is experiencing a very big increase in their rates, because what's going on in the marketplace is that, first of all, we're seeing, accidents continuously coming in, and we're seeing that with those accidents, there's a high level of litigation that's coming in with those, so that's increasing the cost. And so
Mm.
unfortunately, we're seeing that the amount of premium that the insurance companies are collecting on the auto is just not enough to be able to
Mm.
pay for the claims that are happening with, the litigation that's been added onto it. So we're seeing a rise in the cost for the claims. We're also seeing that people are very distracted when they're driving. I mean, we don't realize this, but like, texting and driving is a very, recent thing that's happened for us in the last 10 years. And all those claims are catching up to these insurance carriers.
Oh, wow.
What we're seeing is that a lot of insurance carriers out there are taking the approach of, hey, we won't just write only your auto. We need to write your auto with a supporting line of business, because if this tanks over here, you guys have a claim, we need another supporting line to be able to bring premium in. But even that, we're seeing isn't enough, because we're seeing that a lot of carriers are just completely walking out of California and saying, listen,
Right.
the insurance commissioner needs to make some serious changes from their perspective on, the rates that they're able to charge, because in California there's only a certain amount that you can increase rates by year after year. So if, let's say, somebody's portfolio on the insurance side, they're seeing a huge uptick in claims, they either have the choice of increasing it by, a certain percentage, which I believe is like 25% maximum, or they just have to non-renew the account altogether. So,
Mm.
it's like, do you recoup 25% of our cost, which is not nearly anything compared to the amount that we're paying in claims, or do we non-renew altogether? Well, if we're going to non-renew altogether, we're going to be a losing business. I mean,
Mm.
it's business 101, right? You have to be able to at least be breaking even or profitable. And so that's why
Right.
I think these insurance companies are taking a stand on the auto side, where they're saying, you know what? If you're not going to allow us to charge what we need to charge to do business here, we'll take our business somewhere else and insure other people in other states. And so I think there's a really big issue going on in the insurance market, and I think it's just going to continue to compound until we really address it, because it's going to continue to cause carriers to leave the state, unfortunately.
And now even the reinsurance people are kind of in trouble. So,
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. On the excess side, especially, I mean, we're seeing it across the board that it's just so much harder to get these carriers to come on board to write the business, because, we're seeing a lot of claims that are hitting, over that $1 million threshold that people are covering themselves from.
wow.
And so
Wow.
it's definitely become a big issue across the board. And I think it more so has been affecting California than most other states. And of course, like on the property side, we see it in Florida, we see it in Texas, with all the climate issues that we're dealing with and everything that's going on there. I mean, there's no doubt that we're seeing that. But a lot of the insurance carriers that are focused only in one line of business, they're having to rethink like how to really be able to stay profitable and stay competitive in their own marketplace. And not prevailing to kind of what's going on and what the market is dictating for them to do.
So, what's your crystal ball thinking these days? Is insurance just going to get more and more expensive? Carriers are going to bail out of California? What do you think?
I think that there's going to have to be a lot of legislative changes in
Oh,
order for
wow.
us to see some relief. Um,
Yeah.
and I think that, you know, we do need to definitely see that, especially in California, we have some changes made on, how these claims are being handled and what insurance carriers can charge for them to be able to stay in this marketplace. I mean, listen, I more than anyone else want my clients to get the best rates possible. But I also don't want them to be in situations where they're paying, a certain rate that, is below where the market should be. And all of a sudden that carrier is no longer doing business. They're stuck with three options that are three times the price. And now they haven't, been able to prepare for that kind of increase. And that's what I'm seeing these days. I'm seeing, unfortunately, that sometimes if a carrier is no longer willing to do business in California, not at the fault of my client or anything that they did wrong, but they just decide to leave California altogether, I'm seeing that they're having to pay, astronomically higher rates in the marketplace. And so my whole concern is what kind of legislative changes will be made in order for us to be able to see some relief on both sides, for insurance companies to still be able to be in the marketplace and for employers to be able to survive in their businesses. I mean, we're at a very, very difficult time right now because of the economy and the geopolitical issues that are going on and everything all together. But there has to be some kind of happy medium. And I think it's going to have to come with the compromise of the insurance commissioner really working with the carriers to make some serious changes so that insurance companies can still do business in California and businesses can still survive in California.
Or there are some other states, I don't know which ones they would be, and maybe you don't, that have a little better insurance model rather than the insurance commissioner approach.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say better. Like, I don't want to judge, right? Like, everywhere has its own type of issues that they're going through from that perspective. But, unfortunately, California is a highly litigious state. There are certain counties, especially, that are more litigious than others. Like, LA County is probably one of the highest areas for litigation. And I think that, there has to be legislative changes on that side too that come into play. Like, I think it's not just looking at only that aspect of the insurance, but what's affecting these rising costs of the insurance. And a lot of it is because of the litigation. And so I think attorneys, are very happy with the fact that, they're able to make a lot of money off of these cases, but, it's at the cost of businesses, potentially having a really hard time surviving in this market. So when I say legislatively, I don't only mean on the insurance side. I think on the legal side as well, there has to be some kind of process in place that, prevents somebody from just being able to file a claim and getting money out of it. Because these days that's, because California is so much of an employee favored state. I think that we fall into that situation where judges are, they have rulings that and precedent that kind of almost force them to put employers in a situation where they're having to pay out a lot in the cost of the claims as well. So, nuisance value is, maybe 5-10 years ago, you would have thought that it was like 1,000 or 2,000 or 2,500 bucks. These days, that's like unheard of. Nuisance
Wow.
value has gone up so much in the recent years that now, people are able to settle frivolous claims for, $20,000-$25,000 easily. And you can imagine how painful that is for an employer who's working so hard to just survive in this market to hear. And it's the
Right.
conversation I'm having with almost every single one of my clients is like, unfortunately, it's like become a cost of doing business.
Wow.
And so, yeah, maybe like the larger corporations, they can cover it. They have the ability to be able to continue to maintain. But for the small mom and pop shops, I mean, they're just barely surviving. So it's like
Right.
you got to give them some slack there where like it's like how are they supposed to continue? And this is what, the American dream should be is like to be able to start your business and start it from the ground and move it up. And so yeah, I definitely worry about that and pray and hope that we're in a position where we do see some legislative changes that, do kind of come on the employer side to help their businesses survive too. Obviously with taking into account everything that employees should still be able to have entitlement to, but I think definitely we have to see some serious changes happen in order for us to not see this kind of collapse in the future.
So you think some kind of limit on liability or a limit on law cases would help this situation?
I think there has to be more of an ability for when an employer brings proof that a case is what they believe to be frivolous. I think
Mm,
there has to be a little bit more weight on that than to just say that the employee is going to be the one that wins in every case. And also, you know, for these situations that we get into, even on the commercial auto side, there has to be, I think, some limitations there as well, because personal injury attorneys and employment attorneys, they're doing really, really well right now, and there's a reason for that. And God bless them. They have an amazing hustle, and I totally get the business, but I think it's at the detriment of some really hardworking businesses that are really just trying to survive and make it through this.
Yeah, no, that's kind of sad. And then throw into that equation the ADA lawsuits that are going on.
Oh yeah, we haven't even gone into that, my friend.
Yeah, that's a whole different world.
Yeah.
So the poor restaurant owners and so forth that are getting, hit down with those suits. Although I think those suits are starting to go away, but maybe not.
Yeah, I mean, there's always something, right? I mean,
Yeah.
lawyers are very creative, and they will find every angle they can to see what will stick. And it's sad, but it's become kind of the truth.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about something fun. Like, what is your most favorite sandwich?
I love a good turkey provolone. That's my go-to whenever I go to my Jersey Mike's down the street.
Okay.
So that always is one that hits the spot for me.
That's a good one. I like that. I'm gonna have to try that next time I go to Jersey Mike's. So that's great. So where can people get a hold of you, Shantelle?
You can get a hold of me by phone. My cell phone is 310-266-9553. My email is Shantelle, Shantelle .Cabir, Cabir @newfront.com, newfront.com. And you're also welcome to check me out on LinkedIn. I put a lot of good information out there for employers to be able to stay up to date and in compliance. So always happy to connect there, and always happy to support any business that's in need of finding solutions.
So one last question. How many people work for your firm?
I think it's somewhere close to like 800 employees.
Oh,
that
wow.
work for the firm.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So this is a big group,
Yes.
kind of nationwide or just
Yes.
California?
It's a national company, yeah.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
All right. Well, it was great talking to you. I look forward to talking to you again in the future.
Yes, me too, Bruce. Thank you so much for your time, and thank you for thinking from me for this podcast.
No, this is great. We'll talk soon.
Awesome.
So-
That's a wrap on today's journey through the SF commercial real estate scene. Ready to share your story? Visit sfcommercialconversations.com/guest. Your insights could lead the next conversation.